On today's episode of Locked On Canucks, could the JT Miller to New York Islanders trade still happen? Is 2022-23 a redemption season for Brock Boeser? And I pose potentially the biggest hypothetical scenario / question of all time. It is Locked On Canucks on a Tuesday, July the 19th, and it starts now.
You're Locked On Canucks, your daily podcast on the Vancouver Canucks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Locked On Canucks, the show that keeps you locked in on all things Vancouver Canucks. Of course, I'm your host, Justin Pooney. You can find me at Twitter at _process sports. You can find our show on Twitter at Locked On Canucks. Please also like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. I want to thank you for making Locked On Canucks your first listen of the day. We, of course, are free and available wherever you get your services. So another day where we dive into a Canucks player and what a successful season like for them. Analysis will be on one Brock Boeser. But before we get to, there are reports out there that the JT Miller to New York Islanders deal is not dead just yet. Of course, it's been a bit more than a couple weeks since the NHL draft, where the deal blew up in their face. Or not blew up in each team's face, the deal just blew up. Lou Lamoriello said, ask Vancouver, and Patrick Allvin denied all of any inclination of dealing Miller to Long Island. So when I look at this, the Islanders, went to back-to-back Eastern Conference Finals the years previous. They just fired Barry Trotz. They still have a decent young core surrounded by a guy like Matthew Barzal. But the biggest piece to me is they have a new arena. They have a brand new arena in Long Island, and they're going to want to have it packed all the time. Now, the Long Island faithful and the fan base there, as we all know, is very, very loyal, very, passionate. We saw that during the playoffs. But they're also in a division with the likes of, the Rangers. They're also in a division with the likes of the Devils. They're also in the likes of a division with the Pittsburgh Penguins. They're with the the Pittsburgh Penguins, the Carolina Hurricanes, the Washington Capitals, the Detroit Red Wings, and of course, not the Detroit Red Wings, the Columbus Blue Jackets, who just signed Johnny Gaudreau. So when you look at the Metro Division in the NHL, what do you see? Carolina has young and up-and-coming stars. New York is filled with young and up-and-coming stars, which we, as all us Canucks fans know, we are very tantalized to acquire in a JT Miller trade. Pittsburgh has their core of Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, Chris Letang, all locked in for a few more years. A very old team, but they've won their 3 Stanley Cups, and they still carry somewhat of a pedigree. You have the Washington Capitals with Alexander Ovechkin, but there's going to be no Nick Backstrom this year. So what do we expect from the Capitals? Of course, the Flyers are in full kind of rebuild mode. I was listening to another podcast today, and they were ripping Chuck Fletcher apart for not clearing cap space to acquire Johnny Gaudreau, who is from the Philadelphia area. And he was, disclaimer, he was on, they were interviewing Johnny Gaudreau. So maybe there's a bit of tongue in cheek there. But, the Jackets have some nice pieces. They just signed Johnny Gaudreau. So the Islanders are kind of sitting there where, we went to back-to-back Eastern Conference Finals, but we had a bad year last year. And where do we, go from here? Of course, they still have, BC boy Matt Barzal, who I believe is a great building block piece, who, is somebody who can, build. If we're looking at Matt Barzal, he is a true number one center to me. But when you have a guy, they have a guy like Ilya Sorokin, a good Noah Dobson. They still have, Josh Bailey. they have some interesting pieces on their roster right now. I'm just pulling up their stats, their roster. They have Brock Nelson, as I mentioned, Noah Dobson, Anders Lee, Josh Bailey. So they have Barzell and they have a bunch of pieces. In the way it kind of breaks down. Um, so where JT Miller would be a perfect fit in Long Island. I think he can play with Barzell on the top line, or he can fill in on a secondary role. Um, and Lou Lamoriello has 1 year left on his deal. So is there pressure on Lou to get a deal done and bring in some talent and put some butts in the seats? I think so. Um, Now, we all know Lou Lamoriello is a very proud individual, and I don't foresee him, if he was spurned by Vancouver, I don't see him calling back Vancouver and trying to work out a deal. But as we currently sit here today, on July the 19th, 2022, at 7:19 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, JT Miller is still a Vancouver Canuck. And I found, and I said this last week, regardless of a deal with the Islanders gets done, and it very might well still get done. The Islanders are under pressure. They want to get back into the playoffs. Like I said, they want to fill their new arena out, build a sort of buzz. They're in a division that, there's the three teams in that division, or at least two teams in that division that are surefire playoff teams. You still have the Pittsburgh Penguins, who I, still believe are a playoff team, and you have the Washington Capitals. Columbus will be better. The Devils and Philly are kind of the only two teams that are, and I guess Columbus as well, that are, kind of, they're all right. So they're kind of stuck in no man's land. And could adding JT Miller really help them push for the playoffs? Yes. So it makes sense for the Islanders side. But does it make sense for the Canucks? I don't think so, because if the deal was proposed and it wasn't good enough, the Canucks are the reason this deal has not happened yet, because Jim Rutherford and Patrick Allvin are playing the waiting game and being patient, and as they should be, because as Jim Rutherford said, I will not be bullied into a deal. There's no sense to be impatient. I'm going to find the right deal for the Vancouver Canucks and put the Canucks first. That's all we can ask for. So, and that's why, again, you're hearing all this talk about him opening the doors and opening the doors to allowing to be a welcoming situation for JT Miller. But then again, we know that JT Miller will probably not be back in Vancouver without a new deal or without being traded. Like, he will. I don't foresee him coming back to Vancouver on a 1 year deal remaining. But he could. It could very well happen. So to tie a bow on this Islanders thing, it might happen. I doubt it, because I think Lou Lamoriello is too damn proud to pick up the phone again and call Vancouver and strike up a deal. So while it is possible, I don't see it happening. So that is that on the Canucks, news front for the day today. Coming up after this break, though, we're going to dive into Brock Boeser and how this year is a redemption year and can also let him be him once again. But first, I want to talk to you guys about Built Bar. From the people who invented healthy and tasty comes the latest gift to your taste buds. You've probably tried the amazing coconut brownie chunk Built Bar, but guess what? Your friends at Built have given coconut brownie chunk the Puffs treatment. That's right, the coconut brownie chunk Built Bar flavor you love. A deliciously creamy marshmallow covered in 100% real chocolate. It's like a fluffy cloud of coconut brownie goodness. But stop drooling and listen. There are good for you, low calorie, low sugar, high protein, and all delicious. Coconut brownie chunk puffs are here for a limited time only. Go to built.com to make sure you don't miss out. They're going fast because they taste amazing. All of Built bars are made with collagen protein, which your body absorbs more efficiently and provides tons of health benefits. Eat something that tastes good and is good for you. The best part about the Built Puffs is, of course, they taste amazing, but you can enjoy them guilt-free because they're actually good for you. They are the perfect treat, they're the perfect treat, perfect for when you got a craving, you need to satisfy your sweet tooth, or when you need a quick or healthy snack. They're an excellent source of protein, delicious coconut, rich brown marshmallow. Stop fantasizing. Get to built.com to order your box of coconut chunk Built Puffs right now. And there is a special offer. Go to locked 15 and get 15%. Use promo code locked team. Welcome back to Locked On Canucks, the show that keeps you locked in on all things Vancouver Canucks. Before we dive into Brock Boeser, of course, it is the end of July is near, so NFL training camps are opening up, which means Locked On and NFL has you covered. Which NFL stars move the betting lines the most? Starting July 18th, Locked On gives you 50 of the most valuable players in the NFL from the odds makers at BetOnline. Available July 18th on Locked On NFL, wherever you get your podcasts and YouTube. So that is that. Again, very excited for the NFL season to start. Can't wait to cheer on the 12s this year. But we digress and we move on towards the one, the only, the man who just signed a new 3-year deal, Brock Boeser. Of course, this offseason started off with the emotional press conference of his father and opening up with how he was dealing with his father's health issues and his dwindling health issues, and we saw him in tears and be real emotional and really open up and show his raw human emotion. Of course, he then a few weeks later lost his father tragically, Duke, and it was a very somber time. And there was moments where people, myself included, after the season ended, that maybe it was time for Brock Boeser's tenure in Vancouver to end. However, that did not happen, thankfully. Jim Rutherford and Patrick Alvine announced that they were signing the 25-year-old right on Canada Day, or the weekend of Canada Day, excuse me, that they were signing the 25-year-old right winger to a 3-year extension with $6.65 million. And quite frankly, everybody in the fan base, myself included, and most people you talk to, felt the deal was fair. It was fair market value for Brock Boeser, a 25-year-old winger who has some decent scoring pedigree, and that it will be under control for $6.65 million for the next 3 years. That will take him to 28. So still in his prime, but you're going to get the meat of the Brock Boeser prime years under this contract. It was a very difficult year for Brock Boeser. He did not produce to what many people expected him to, and what he was, what his own expectations were. He finished off with, he finished off with 71 games played, 23 goals, 23 assists for 46 points. That was back-to-back seasons with 23 goals. Of course, last year he only played 56 games. Of course, we all know his rookie year, he burst on the scene, 62 games, he scored 29 goals. So we know Brock Boeser has potential to score 30 goals a season. We all know his shot. He was dealing with injury. He was late to training camp one year. I think this year, upcoming right now, might finally be the year that Brock Boeser can put it all together. Boeser, I think we all can agree, foot speed's not his greatest strength. Even though he tries to be a 200-foot player, that foot speed does not allow him to be a great 200-foot player. He is known to put the puck in the back of the net, and that is what the Canucks are paying him to do. If you look at the salary structure of the right wingers in the NHL, he is 14th amongst the salary. Of course, you have guys at the top of the list like Marner, Kane, Mark Stone, Kucherov, Rantanen, Stamkos, Voracek, Kevin Fiala now, and Tarasenko. All guys who have big pedigrees, and we can all fairly say they are a level above Brock Boeser. But is Brock Boeser a top 15 right winger in the NHL? Well, he definitely has the potential to be that, and he definitely is going to be getting paid like that. So when I look at Brock Boeser's season and how I deem it successful, similar to what I was saying about Ilya Mikheyev. Ilya Mikheyev yesterday, we talked about how he, is going to be brought to be speed, a penalty killer, play a 200-foot game, but he's also being paid to score. Well, Brock Boeser is going to get a load of opportunity to score goals. He's going to be on the top line again with Elias Pettersson and probably JT Miller if he's sticking around. He's going to be on the Unit 1 power play, so he's going to be getting ample opportunity to score goals. When the Canucks now, and when you see how, years previous, people would start loading up on the Boeser side and try to play him a bit differently because he was one of the only options. Now, if JT Miller stays, you have Miller, Horvat, Pettersson, Boeser, Hughes, all on a first unit power play. There are a lot of options there. So that's going to open up time and space for Brock Boeser. And I expect him to take advantage of that on the power play this year. I expect the Canucks power play to be much better this year. And at 5-on-5, I think align with Miller and Pettersson once again, he will get more opportunity because the defense is going to cater more towards those two, which could benefit very well for Brock Boeser. What is the benchmark for Brock Boeser goal-wise? 25 goals is the bare minimum to me. When you are making $6.65 million, you have to be, and you are a winger and you are paid to score goals. 25 goals to me is the bare minimum. I think if Brock Boeser can get anywhere from 28 to 32 goals this year, now that's assuming he's healthy for the entire or majority of the season. If he can do that, that is a win. And if he can continue on, be consistent 30-goal scorer for the next 3 years, the Canucks have gotten, fair value for that deal, maybe even a bit of a bargain. If he can push to maybe 35 or whatnot, then the Canucks are sitting pretty. And that also helps Boeser too, because he's going, after this deal, he goes into unrestricted free agency where he then has the opportunity where he's not under cost control. There's no qualifying offer. He can do whatever he wants. This 3-year period, this 3-year stretch that starts off this year is massive for the career of Brock Boeser. If he wants to get paid and live up to the hype that he came into as, he has to start producing this year on a more consistent basis. He is a streaky scorer. Now, if he is getting every ample opportunity to put the puck in the back of the net, and he has to. Another reason why I think this year will be special, not special, but a bounce back year of sorts for Brock Boeser is he's going to come in with a clear mind. Last year, dealing with his father, health issues weighing on his shoulders, wishing he was there, but then also struggling, coaching changes, injuries, all that stuff. This offseason, he has every chance to, train, get back to Vancouver healthy, and, take the necessary steps which any human being needs to grieve a devastating loss that he underwent. So I believe Brock Boeser, if he comes into camp sharp mentally and physically and is ready to go, there is no reason he cannot score 25 plus goals this year. And I think at least 28 to 30, 32, it should be where his wheelhouse should be, given the opportunities he's going to have, given the talent and all of that. So for me, a successful season for Brock Boeser is, as I mentioned, anywhere from 25 plus. I'm thinking on 28 to 32 goals this year, and throwing your 25 to 30 assists. So, around 55, 60 points, and, he's going to be scoring goals. That will justify the contract, that will justify for the player, and that will justify for the fan base, and hopefully justify a playoff run. Speaking of a playoff run, coming up after this final break, I'm going to pose a hypothetical question that, if you follow me on Twitter, got some traction. And I wanted to kind of open your minds to it and let you know what I think this hypothetical situation would look like. So stick around for that. And welcome back to Locked On Canucks, the show that keeps you locked in on all things Vancouver Canucks. Final segment of our show today, of course, touched on the JT Miller potentially rumors to New York. The Islanders have opened up once again. Talked about Brock Boeser and what his season would look like if it was a success. But right now, I'm going to pose a hypothetical question. The hypothetical question I put out on Twitter was, imagine if the Canucks and the Leafs faced off in the Stanley Cup Finals. I said there would be a civil war in Canada. Battle lines would be drawn. The two biggest cities, East Coast versus West Coast. Although Toronto is not really on a coast; it's in the kind of the Midwest or Mid-East of Canada, and all the stereotypes you want to put on. The center of the universe, Toronto. The people that think they're better than everybody else versus us out there on the West Coast, us hippies in BC. But what I'm looking more forward to, if this was to ever happen, now I don't think that ever will happen because the NHL won't want it to happen. and the Leafs will never make it past the first round. But if this was to happen, the amount of toxicity amongst fan bases between Vancouver and Toronto, two franchises, two cities that are starving for a Stanley Cup win. The Canucks since 1970, the Leafs, of course, since when? 1967. Of course, the Leafs have not made it past the first round since 2004, when the likes of Joe Nieuwendyk, Gary Roberts, Matt Sundin, Darcy Tucker, and Ed Belfour led the blue and white to the second round. So, there's maybe some Canucks fans out here listening to this podcast who have never seen the Leafs make it past the first round. Of course, we all know the Canucks have made it past the first round a few times since 2004. But the toxicity between these two fan bases, the trolling of the Canucks nation of the Leafs would be absolutely unequivocally amazing to see. Just imagine just the fan bases, just what it's like when the Leafs come to Toronto, or so the Leafs come to Vancouver, and it's just that playoff like atmosphere. Times that by 10,000. Imagine Rogers Arena. Well, hopefully then there will be no Leafs fans, will be all Canucks fans there. But just imagine that scene. Leafs versus Canucks, Stanley Cup Finals, the biggest stage in the hockey world. It would be amazing. But the Twitter wars, the Twitter battles, the social media fights between Leaf fans and Canucks fans, because I'm a Canuck, I'm one of the biggest Leaf trolls out there, and I'm not afraid to admit it, because it's so much fun. But I think it would just be amazing to see, and maybe one day in my lifetime we will see it. Now I know you guys know I wasn't around in '94 when the Canucks and Leafs played in the Western Conference Finals. Still kind of crazy to me to believe that the Leafs were in the Western Conference yet played in Eastern time zone. So that was kind of weird. So that was a hypothetical question for you guys. I pose this question to you in the comment section below. What would happen if the Canucks and Leafs ever played in the Stanley Cup Finals? What would it be like? I want to hear your responses. So please drop it in the comment section below. And maybe tomorrow on tomorrow's show, I'll go through some answers. Or if you want, hit me up on Twitter, @_process sports. Let me know what you think a Canucks versus Leafs Stanley Cup final would look like. Or hit me up in the DMs as well. And I will read them out. And some of the funniest response, I'll read them out tomorrow. So tomorrow we will dive into Captain Bo Horvat and what a successful season will look like for him. Again, this is Locked On Canucks. I want to thank you for making Locked On Canucks your first listen every day. Now, for your second listen, Locked On NHL. Locked On experts give you a daily 30-minute podcast on all things NHL all year long. Stay up to date on everything in the hockey world. Locked On NHL, your daily 30-minute NHL podcast. Take care, guys. Stay safe, and I will talk to you